Hello, this is Nancy Flinchbaugh with spiritualseedlings.com. I'm an author, and my most recent book, Revelation in the Roots, Emerald Isle, discusses racism. And so I'm conducting a series of interviews talking about race. I'm doing this in part as a tribute to my late friend, Winky Mitchell. Today I'm interviewing Lori Clark. Lori is a retired elementary school teacher. She's a member here in Springfield, Ohio on the Clark County Historical Board, a volunteer with St. Vincent de Paul, and also a convert to Roman Catholicism. Well, welcome, Lori Clark. It's so good to see you today. Thank you for joining me to talking about race. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about, first of all, what do you think is the significance of talking about race in America today?
I think the significance is that it permeates everything. You know, we fill out forms and we're always being asked what our race is, or even if it's not openly asked about, it's people are trying to guess. Well, I wonder what they are, as if it's important, which it is, but it isn't. At least for our country, I think race has an outsized effect in negative ways. It's used negatively, but if you call it out, then it's like you're not supposed to talk about it. It's there, it's important, it matters, but don't bring it up. Some people will try to shut you down if you want to. So the fact that it is so important, but we're not allowed to discuss it to try to understand it. I think that's the proof that race is important. And if there's anything that's important going on, it needs to be discussed always. You should just always have open dialogue. So, yeah.
I mean, what I hear you saying partially is, as a white person, sometimes white people don't think race is very significant, even though they unconsciously are making decisions and probably discriminating against people. They don't think they are, and they aren't being discriminated against. So then they get upset when somebody else starts talking about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's very different viewpoint from a white person versus a person of color in the United States, because, I don't face discrimination because of the color of my skin. And so when people tell me this is going on, sometimes I can be surprised, because it's not happening to me every day, which brings up my next question. Have you had any personal experiences with racism? What would you say?
Yeah, blatant. When I went away to college, I went to Bowling Green right after high school, and I had gone to the store and I was just standing at the corner waiting for the light to change to walk back to campus. And a car came by full of some white boys. They were like teenagers. I don't know if they were college students, just kids from the town. And as they came up to me, they shouted the N-word at me. And that was the first time anybody ever used the N-word towards me. And I didn't know them. They didn't know me. They just saw my skin. I was standing there alone. There wasn't anybody else at the intersection. And for whatever reason, they felt they needed to call me that. There was another instance. I had made friends. It was my very first quarter on campus. And I had made some friends and we were all sitting in one dorm room. And I happened to be like by the window, the very back. And, you keep your doors open and stuff. And this girl who I kind of knew from the dorm, she had a run-in with another student, an African-American student. And I could tell it was a bad run-in, not physical, but they, said, and so she came in and she saw the other kids who were white. I was the only Black kid there. And I was, like I said, I was in the back. I was over by the TV, and she started railing against this other student. She was using the N word and how much she hated those people and everything. And she didn't realize I was in there. And I just chose to pretend that I didn't hear her. I turned my back like I was watching TV. And a couple of the kids who were sitting next to me, they kind of put their arm around me, like to comfort me. And then she spotted me, and she immediately became red in the face and she ran away. And I pretended like I hadn't heard her. And I was saying, what? Something happened? Just I was 17 years old. I started college at 17, and I didn't know how to handle that because nothing like that had ever happened. So I just pretended it hadn't happened. But the kids around me, it upset them, and they tried to, comfort me. But then when I pretended like I didn't know, they were just like, oh, they dodged a bullet. And we didn't have to have a discussion about race that time.
Oh,
But
that's
other
wow.
than that,
Two things. Your first quarter, that must
yeah,
have been pretty disturbing to you.
yeah. Except that at the time where I was with Bowling Green, they had a really strong support system. Um, there was a lot, and I can't tell you the name of the group, but they had tutors and a center in the student building, and there was a lot of welcoming Hispanic students and African American students, minority students, a place for them to come to help them be successful. And so that was very strong and very obvious. I had Black friends there. Some kids from Springfield had gone there, and they were in fraternity sororities, and they reached out to kids from their hometown. So I recognized even at that age that these were individuals, and it wasn't the system, that the university had already recognized that you need to help kids, whether they're first generation going to college, socioeconomically. They had those infrastructures in place. So I felt comfortable on that campus. I never felt that it was a campus-wide thing. I recognized these were just people who, for whatever reason, wherever they were coming from, that seemed to be important to them. That race was important. Yeah.
I'm glad you had that support, and even from the other people in the room at the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
that they were
Yeah, we had all
supportive
just
of
met
you.
each other, and yeah, in different parts of the state and everything. And yeah.
So I know, like, you've just retired from how many, 30, 35 years as a
I have
elementary
been
teacher?
working straight since I got out of college from the age of 21, and I just turned 60. I'm very blessed. I haven't had any unemployment, so that's 39 years of working, but actually teaching was 27. I came to teaching late. I came home, worked, decided to go back to school, and put myself through Wittenberg, and that's where I got my bachelor's degree in education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think it's important to discuss race in schools? Or what would you say
Yeah,
about
it really is, especially in public schools, because you do have a diverse student population. Um, not as much with the teachers, administration, not as much, but definitely with the students. And you need not, and even not just race, but really the socioeconomic. Most teachers come from either middle class or well-to-do homes, and that's their life experience. And they're not always able to relate to people who are poor, people who struggle from day to day. They don't really understand. And I can look at myself. I'm African American, but I grew up solidly middle class. Both my parents grew up poor during the Depression, but like a lot of people, they got federal government jobs, which were stable, good benefits, good pay, and they were solidly in the middle class. And I didn't understand, other than listening to family stories. I never saw my parents struggle to pay the bills. We had enough. They were able to send us both to college. It wasn't a struggle. So even that, I can't relate to firsthand, but being African American, I can certainly bring that to the table. So talking about race and trying to get outside your own life experiences is very important. I can relate as African American, but I can't relate to the immigrant experience. I can't relate to what it is to be Latino or Asian American. I'm Christian. I can't necessarily relate to someone who is Jewish, although I have some family members who are Jehovah's Witnesses. So I bring that sensibility to, all of the holiday things that we bring, especially in elementary school. So we as educators have to be able to discuss and to be open and say, I don't get it. And then open to listen to other points of view to help understand a little bit more. Yeah.
But that's kind of how you handle it as a teacher, trying to help the students understand each other a little bit better. And
And if I did have any students who were Jewish, a few times I did in my career, and I reached out to those children's parents and asked them, could they come in and share some type of celebration or something. One year, one of the children's, I think her mother was from Mexico, and she came and shared some of the different ways that they celebrate, Christmas and Halloween. They do some different traditions and stuff, and just tried to bring it in that way to open up to the children. There's more than one way. We would even do holidays around the world. And through that, the kids discovered that the way we celebrate here in the United States, we got something from Germany. Here, the Russians do this. Oh, we do that. The British, they're the ones who wrote the letters to say it. All of these immigrants, because we're a nation of immigrants, all of those traditions came from other parts of the world. And now we claim them as being American. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So when you studied history in school, did you learn about racism in the United States? And if so, how
No.
did that?
And I think part of it is my age. So I'm 60 now. So like when Dr. King was assassinated, that was in 68, I was 8 years old. So the history books, by the time I got to high school, I don't know if they really understood how to address the civil rights movement. So, it was still so modern. It was like a blurb, the
They hadn't
depth
quite
of
made it into the history books yet because it
exactly
was still unfolding, right? I think I had the
right.
same experience where I just don't remember. I don't remember that discussion.
Yeah,
You know?
no, not at all. Yeah, yeah. I mean, World War II, even Vietnam was still, the final decisions on Vietnam hadn't been made yet. Things were still kind of raw. Um, so it really wasn't part of my academic life at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
Well,
wasn't.
we hear a lot about critical race theory right now. Do you know what that is? And do you think that that's really being taught in the schools?
Um, I think I understand what it is. Basically, that it is looking at the systems that this country has set up, and that race was a critical part in how they were set up. That that allowed the existing power structure to hold on to power. Um, and and I believe that, yes, the evidence is there. I've done enough historical studying, reading, and everything that it makes sense to me. As a teacher, no, nobody is teaching critical race theory. Most, until the 1619 Project came out, most teachers from K to 12 didn't know about it. It is something that is brought up in postgraduate work, law schools, things like people who are well into adulthood before they even encounter that theory and discuss it. And I don't even know how much they discuss it. To be honest with you, the way, and obviously I can only speak about the state of Ohio, we are so bogged down with what the state, what the legislators, because they are in control of what we do, what we teach, even more so than our local school boards. we are so bogged down with standards and testing and everything. If it is not on that state test, we really don't cover it. I mean, I look at the difference from the beginning of my career to the end, and, science got pushed aside, the lower elementary grades, health, we used to cover these things. At a certain point, we didn't even have art and phys ed and music, we were responsible for them because of money issues. Nobody has time for those things. There is so much attached to those state test results. That is what we focus on. So if you, you
Teaching
want to
to the
say
test.
teachers are grooming about, and I don't even want to say teaching to the test, but what we focus on has narrowed. We focus on, because we don't know exactly, we just know what areas we need to cover, what the kids need to know the most. But another things like with cursive handwriting, all of those things go by the wayside because, well, that's not on the test. And the legislators have said these tests are the most important. We're going to grade you. And so it trickles down, and everything is about the test. Parents deciding where they're going to live based on the school district scores and things like that. And it has become this monster, and nobody has time for that.
So in terms of teaching about race, did you do that at all as an elementary school teacher? And
I would I tried to incorporate stories from other points of view, so that I had, but most of the time I taught third and second. So one of the standards is other cultures. You're supposed to expose children to other cultures. So I did that through, I did a unit on immigration, which I got into Ellis Island and reading books about people's experiences coming to this country throughout, time, so we could also cover some historical things. And I would also try to have books about, or from the viewpoint of African-American little Black boys and girls, or Asian. There are some authors that have some wonderful books, a lot of Patricia Polacco books, because her family is a family of immigrants, plus being part Jewish. So I was able to bring in those other cultures there, and expose the children to other cultures. So I won't necessarily say just race, but race and other cultures. And I could do it through those. It's important that the children see that. As a child, I can count on my hand how many Black dolls I had. There were a few more because, like I said, I was growing up in the 60s and manufacturers made more of an effort, but I tried to have a lot of those in my classroom. I will say our school district adopted, just before I retired, a series that, at least for the second grade level, had wonderful, wonderful units on Native American, the early years of America. So we got a real understanding of Native American life and its relationship to our government, the Buffalo out west, the settlement of the West. That was wonderful. And then we had another unit where we were able to cover civil rights, tying that in with Ruby Bridges and Dr. King, and also, and I can't remember the name, but Latinos in the West, and desegregating the schools out in California, because we always think about Blacks desegregating, but Latinos have the same story, the same history, but it tended to be out west in California, which of course used to be part of Mexico. And, that whole, there's a lot of history we don't understand, as Americans. Yeah.
So kind of organically making it part of what you're teaching, and so that the children kind of learn to respect the differences and get a little bit of the background too, of the history of the different groups, how people got to be here and things like that. Yeah,
because it really is organic. It shouldn't be separate outside. It is, our American history is the history of all those groups that made this country what it is right now. That's part of it. Yeah.
I lived in Texas for a while, and people have a lot of stereotypes about Texas, but Texas is a very diverse place, and I taught Texas history, and in San Antonio, where I live, they had the Institute of Texan Cultures, and it's wonderful. It's round and all the different, they have like a movie there with all the different ethnic groups that came to Texas. I love teaching about that because it's not your usual stereotype. Because most of my students are Mexican American in San Antonio. That's the majority, but it was a great time. Well, I want to thank you for your service. You know, you've done a great job, obviously, as a teacher all those years. I know one of my sons was in your class, and he certainly grew up with a healthy attitude about race, and now he goes out.
Which came from his mother and father. I always tell people, it's like that people underestimate the importance of what they bring from home. It's so important.
Not from us, but also from you. So thank you for that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for taking time to interview with me today. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I was trying to think what the questions were. I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was nice.
Enjoy retirement, the fruits of your labor.
I am enjoying it, I say. And I do want to add, if I can, one of the things that I've started doing since I retired is I volunteer at St. Vincent de Paul, their thrift store, 2 days a week. And just since I started doing that this summer, that has been a real eye-opener, because I'm understanding the immigrant point of view. We have a lot of Haitian immigrants, and it's one thing to look at a Scholastic website, which is really wonderful if you want to learn about Ellis Island, but to see modern day immigration and what it is like to come to a new country, to come to your second or third country as you're traveling from one place to the other and trying to get settled, it's been a real eye-opener. And I have been loving the experience, and I want to delve more into that. So
I encourage other people to get out and meet people. I don't think we know what we don't know until we find out. Getting to know people of other cultures. And wow, it's really hard to be an immigrant in the United States today, because there aren't very many avenues to be legally come here. And so, well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your work too as a volunteer. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Will you join me in talking about race? Email me at nancy.flinchbaugh@gmail.com if you would like me to interview you. This has been a Spiritual Seedlings interview with Nancy Flinchbaugh. Check out my websites at nancyflinchbaugh.com and spiritualseedlings.com, and follow my YouTube channel for more interviews. And I hope you'll check out my latest book, Revelation in the Roots, Emerald Isle, and see what I have to say through my characters in working together to solve our problems of both race and politics in the United States. It's a novel, it's an adventure, it's a trip to Ireland. Check it out.